What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, today's video, we are going to talk about X-Men number 20 by Jonathan Hickman and Francesco Mobili. And in this video, we're going to learn how Orcus plans to bring the Nimrod program online, and more importantly, what that pink crystal teased in X-Men number 1 is capable of doing that the mutants on Krakoa have been doing since House of X. And more importantly, we're going to learn that Charles Xavier and Magneto are going to commit a careless act that may just have been the ember that sparks the Inferno that Mystique promised us in X-Men number 6. We're going to talk about all that and more right now. But first, if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoy the video, I humbly ask that you Hulk smash that like button because it really helps the channel out. Now that said, let's hit that intro.
Word to wise, grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Okay, so with this issue, we are going to get a hard answer to something that I think has been teased since House of X and X-Men number 1 under Jonathan Hickman, but was never really addressed in any meaningful way. And to talk about that, we kind of have to go back to X-Men number 1. In this issue, Dr. Gregor is trying to bring the Nimrod program online, and she plans to do it using this pink crystal that she has in her possession. This crystal was first showed to us in X-Men number 1, and when it was shown to us, she told us that she had figured out a secret, that she had discovered something, harnessed some kind of a power that Orcus didn't have before, and how she planned to bring her husband back. She has been slaving away at this process since she lost her husband Erasmus in House of X number 4. And right now, all she wants is the love of her life back. And when she showed us this crystal, she never really told us exactly what this crystal was capable of, like what it is exactly that she plans to do with it. But what we learn is that this crystal, in fact, is the housing of her husband's essence, in much the same way that Charles Xavier is able to back up the very essence, the mind, the memories of a mutant into Cerebro. This is the same thing, minus the Cerebro, but human, taking all of Erasmus's memories and being able to store them inside of this crystal. This crystal is, for all intents and purposes, a thumb drive of her husband. Now, granted, she is going to bring her husband back, but he's not going to come back flesh and blood. She is going to place this crystal inside of the Nimrod Sentinel, which for all intents and purposes is the most powerful and most dangerous of all Sentinels in the X-Men's corner of the Marvel Comics universe. She is going to put this inside of the Nimrod to bring her husband back. And oddly enough, it works. He remembers her. He remembers her name. He knows who she is. He remembers who he once was. Even when Dr. Gregor, with tears in her eyes, tries to tell him that he's not going to be able to remember everything right away, he almost instantaneously remembers everything. The fact that he died, how he died, and now that he's back, I'm pretty sure everyone in Orcus is just absolutely gobsmacked and trying to figure out now what the next move is. They have now figured out how to circumvent human death. Now, granted, the process probably doesn't always work. We don't really know the full extent of the implications of this form of Quotey Fingers resurrection, but it is safe to say there will be no baby making whatsoever in the Gregor household because he doesn't have those bits anymore. And even if Gregor did somehow outfit him with the proverbial pipe to lay the smack down on those cheeks, I'm pretty certain he wouldn't be able to seed a child. I'm pretty sure this gives us an even greater insight into how the Nimrod that we saw in Powers of 10 came to be, because one of the things we're going to get into here in just a minute is is how the data within that crystal works. Now, before we do that, one of the things I found very interesting about this is that we know Mystique is on a mission right now at the Orcus Forge. She has been sent to infiltrate the Orcus Forge and to destroy it. Now, that said, the first thing I thought of when I read this issue was, well, if Nimrod is any kind of a Sentinel whatsoever, I find it very odd that he didn't at one point immediately realize that there's a mutant among them. And no sooner than I started thinking about that, that's immediately where Jonathan Hickman chimes in and reminds us that Nimrod can sense mutants, as most Sentinels usually can, but Nimrod is especially effective at it. No sooner than he recognizes that Mystique is in the room, he immediately opens fire on her as she unleashes the device that she asked Forge to make for her when she went on this mission. Now, going back to that, a lot of people got really up in arms about the prospect of Mystique and Forge having a conversation with each other. A lot of people tend to put way more emphasis on their relationship than what was actually there. A lot of people like to go on about how, oh, they were together, they had this long-lasting relationship. But here's the thing when you really think about it. Their relationship lasted barely 10 issues. It wasn't really anything, especially when you think about how long Forge spent with Storm. He was in a relationship with Storm that kind of roughly started around Uncanny X-Men Volume 1, number 186, back in 1984, and they were together all the way up until Uncanny X-Men Volume 1, number 290 in 1992. They were together for roughly 8 years, and yet no one remembers that relationship at all. The one they like to focus on is the short stint, the incredibly short stint that he had with Mystique shortly after that. But that's neither here nor there. The point of the matter is that she wants him to make her weapon. And this weapon that she has unleashed is basically a bomb that unleashes a short-lived singularity that once it exhausts its lifespan, it creates an implosion. This is meant to destroy the Orcus base and essentially get rid of the Nimrod Sentinel and hopefully set Orcus back all the way to square one. The problem is that this is a Nimrod. Nimrod is something that is very difficult to destroy. Being a Sentinel who is about his job, he immediately uses his newfound abilities that he recently discovered as he came online. The fact that he can generate weapon systems on the fly, the fact that he has a near infinite tactical database, the fact that he can absorb energy, and more importantly, one of his more useful abilities is duplication. Now, this is where things get a little hairy because he is going to duplicate himself so that he can not only protect his wife, Alia, but he can also stop Mystique, who is on the run. Now, the problem with this is that while he's chasing down Mystique, it becomes obvious to Erasmus while he is operating this Nimrod body that if he duplicates himself, he loses some of the data within himself. That basically the data within himself has to basically grow to become what it was compared to its host. The reason why this is such a big problem for Dr. Gregor is because when Erasmus creates duplicates in his Nimrod form, he partitions part of his memories and his essence away in those other forms. So the more duplicates he makes, and as those duplicates are destroyed for whatever reason, he loses more of himself, becoming less the man that she wanted to bring back and more the cold, calculated mutant killing machine we're familiar with. Erasmus is about to sacrifice himself, and he's going to create yet another duplicate, basically equally partitioning off the data inside of himself and making himself less of the person that he originally was, case in point being Alia's husband. And he sacrifices his other duplicate so that it can keep the singularity held off while Alia is able to escape. And once the bomb has completely detonated away from Orcus base thanks to Nimrod taking it outside of the Orcus Forge, this is when Alia realizes the true fruits of her labor, when she realizes that her husband is now gone. When she tries to ask Erasmus if he is still within the Nimrod Sentinel. We don't get a definitive answer directly from the Nimrod itself, but the words that it tells her before she begins crying basically let us know he's not in there anymore. The fact that he says, "I'm so sorry about what I'm about to tell you," and even more importantly, the answer that we get, not so much the one that Alia gets, the one that actually is more definitive for us is when the Nimrod is holding Mystique by the throat in front of one of the Krakoan gates and letting her know that she has not destroyed the Orcus Forge, that her trying to stop Nimrod was pointless and fruitless, and that he plans on sending her back to Krakoa so that she can let all of mutant kind know that she failed and that Nimrod is coming to get them. No longer referring to himself as Erasmus, this right here is the definitive moment, letting us know that, yeah, Erasmus is gone. Only Nimrod exists from here on out. Now, the thing that I found incredibly interesting about this particular exchange is what comes after. The fact that when Omega Sentinel and Director Devo are speaking with one another, Director Devo is actually quite pleased with how everything turned out. You ignore the fact that everything could have been destroyed had Erasmus not done what he did, that they would have been set back to the Stone Age, relative speaking, of what Orcus had started with versus what they now have. And she lets Director Devo know that they discovered the Krakoan gate that Mystique had hidden on the base, and that it has basically been made a complete death trap, that if anyone tries to use that gate again, they would die. Everything else has gone according to plan. Erasmus was lost, but other than that, they still maintain the Orcus Forge and they've lost nothing. Honestly, the mutants did more damage to them in House of X when they destroyed Mother Mold. And Director Devo is pleased by this because this confirms something for Director Devo that he hadn't really known before. The fact that they have feared and hated mutants. And even though the mutants have kind of tried to pretend as though they had no necessary interest in killing or harming humans, but the fact that Xavier and Magneto were willing to go this far to destroy Orcus, that using this singularity bomb, it would have actually killed a lot of humans if they were successful. The fact that they were willing to break one of their own laws, the fact that they were willing to go this far to try to snuff out Orcus at this stage lets him know that not only do the mutants hate them, but the mutants fear the humans. And this is exactly what Director Devo needed, because this lets him know that they are effective, that Orcus is working, that Orcus is doing exactly what it needs to do to keep mutant kind on the run, to keep them from feeling like they're as superior, and also maybe giving them an edge in catching the mutants off guard, because if they're going to act this recklessly, then Orcus can probably get away with so much more. The other thing in this book that I find of note is the fact that when we come back to Mystique, Mystique is being resurrected. Now, the question is, why is she being resurrected? Now, supposedly, Magneto and Charles tell her that the reason she was resurrected is because her wounds were so grievous that they couldn't be healed. Now, that one is up for debate. I personally am of the mindset that Mystique very well could have been healed, that she could have survived this. She has probably survived far worse things. Now, we don't really know the full extent of her injuries because they don't really say. All we really know is that whatever Nimrod did to her, he probably at most crushed her vocal cords and at worst mortally wounded her. But something about this just seems off because they had her resurrected. Now remember, they don't want to bring back Destiny. The whole point of this was that if she succeeded in this mission, destroying Nimrod, destroying Orcus, they would bring back Destiny. But we knew from the jump this was never on the table. They are not going to bring back Destiny. As a matter of fact, there is a hard rule to not bring back any mutants who can see the future. Any precognitive cannot exist on Krakoa. And while all that is being said, yes, they did agree that if she was successful, they'd bring her back. But the problem is she failed. And since she failed, she doesn't get Destiny back. Now, of course, they weren't going to bring her back anyway because she's a precog. But I feel like Charles Xavier and Magneto angled this so that they could make an even better excuse as to why they aren't doing what they're doing. If Mystique died on the Orcus Forge, then she wouldn't have any full recollection of every exact thing that happened. We know for a fact that Charles can't back up anyone's mind when they're that far out into space. This was the whole point of contention when Cyclops and his team went to the Mother Mole base and went on that suicide mission, because they weren't going to remember everything. They didn't really fully remember everything about that moment because Charles couldn't reach their minds. Honestly, this was a flex moment. Magneto and Charles know full well what they're doing, and this is not good. This is not good at all. They know full well what they're doing, and honestly, they have incurred the wrath of Mystique. And yes, even though technically Mystique did fail in her mission, she failed to destroy Nimrod, but Magneto and Xavier both know how much bringing back Destiny means to her, and this is something that is going to kickstart an entire event that I feel like is, Marvel right now, Jonathan Hickman, they've basically been doing a lot of trading on the nostalgia of longtime X-Men readers. A lot of the story arcs and a lot of the things that have been going on in these comics all kind of call back to various and sundry major and even sometimes not so major events in the X-Men's history. And one event that I think comes up more often than almost any other event in X-Men history, whether it's by name or by quotes and callbacks, it's been Inferno. And apparently, that's exactly what Mystique plans to unleash, because when Magneto and Charles Xavier basically dismissed Destiny when she asked, "What about Destiny?" and Xavier just kind of flippantly replies, "What about her?" she remembers the words that Destiny told her, that there will be an island, not the first, but the last. This place will seem to be hope for our kind. When those days come, remember these words: bring me back. And if you cannot, if they will not, then burn that place to the ground. And this is where we get the revelation that this fall, a storyline is going to be kicking off called Inferno. Even a little reference towards the bottom about the books of Destiny. Now, this version of Inferno, I don't think is going to have as much to do with the original recipe OG Inferno story arc. That one really got into some supernatural shenanigans, a lot of Goblin Queen, Madeline Pryor shenanigans. Now, it's not to say Madeline Pryor won't be brought into the equation in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Even though she is technically dead, she can be resurrected should someone feel the urge or desire to do so. But something tells me that the whole idea of Mystique burning down Krakoa to ashes to avenge Destiny, to basically throw all of this back into Moira's face, this is not a coincidence. Even more so the fact that we see Moira as we close out this comic, and honestly, I think Moira's making a huge mistake. We have to go back to House of X and remember what Destiny told Moira in House of X #2. The fact that she knows all of the different potential versions of Moira and what she's capable of. She's seen all of these different futures, that she will live 10 lives and maybe 11 if you make the right choice at the end, but that is all. And something tells me that keeping Destiny out of the loop is definitely not part of those right choices. And I think this is actually something even more important. If you think about the fact that, this whole idea of bringing back Inferno using the Inferno story arc, think about how Moira died, in her second life. She died in a fire. She was burned alive by Pyro. Like I said, there may be some overthinking here, there may be some underthinking, but I'm gonna go on a limb and say that this version of Inferno, it will be I guess a spiritual successor to Inferno, but I feel like that's only gonna be in name only, unless they do draw in that supernatural element, which if you bring in the Goblin Queen, I guess it would be very easy to do. And it's not like Nashtrith hasn't been around. We've seen Nashtrith very recently, as a matter of fact, in the pages of Cable. Who's to say what is and is not possible? But I'm very curious to see how it all plays out. That said, if you enjoyed this video, Hulk smash that like button and make sure to share this video all over the internet and with all your friends so that they'll know how you leveled up your comic book big brain in regards to X-Men and Reign of X. On your way out, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know what you thought about X-Men number 20. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.